We are still in the book of Revelation. We are in Revelation chapter 10. In Revelation chapter 10 and 11, we have a little bit of an interlude. It is giving us some rest, some information, some encouragement for brethren in the first century, I should say, based upon what they've just heard from chapter 6, 7, 8, and 9. There are some dire events for the land of Israel. So now God is giving comfort unto the brethren. In Revelation chapter 10, we have 11 verses. I have divided them up this way. You have the strong angel, verse 1. I saw another strong angel coming down out of heaven. That's really going to be the major part of what's being said. Everything is tied to that strong angel. The second thing we have is to define who the strong angel is, of course. Now, looking at looks like verse 3, he cried with a great voice as a lion roareth, and when he cried, the seven thunders uttered their voices. If we have time, we will look at that. In verse 6, we're going to see something particular about the angel along with the other verses. Look down at verse 7, and it says, but in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, which is not the same as the strong angel, that's a different one, and it's the only different one in the text. The rest of the time that it uses the word angel, it refers to the strong angel. In the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he is about to sound, then is finished the mystery of God according to the good tidings which he declared to his servants, the prophets. We continue on and we look at verse 8, and now we have an introduction again of the little book. The little book was given to us in verse 2 in order to describe some things about the strong angel. Now we have the angel giving the book unto John, verse 8, verse 9, verse 10, as well as the strong angel is partaking of and eating the book. Now, if someone is at this moment thinking of ink, it's not ink, it's a figure of speech. The last thing we're going to call attention to is verse 11. They say unto me, John, I use the word John to help us understand who he's talking about. Thou must prophesy again over many peoples, nations, tongues, and kings. Notice the plural on that. So that's basically the way that I'm going to address each one of those points in chapter 10. So we start with the strong angel, and we see some of the things about the strong angel, some of the things we need to know about him. In verse 1, I saw another strong angel coming down out of heaven. Now the question begins and says, now is this Christ? Or is this a angelic being? I would quickly add that this is an angelic being and not Christ. We would also make sure we understand that it is an angelic being out of heaven. It is not one of Satan's angels or messengers. I do not think it is an earthly angel either. Now we're going to go through why we have decided that this is not Christ, but that it is really an angel. You'll take notice of some of the description concerning this angel. It goes like this. He was coming down out of heaven. We addressed that. He's arrayed with a cloud, and the rainbow was upon his head. His face was as the sun, his feet as the pillars of fire. He had in his hand a little book. He set his right foot upon the sea and his left foot upon the earth. And he cried with a great voice as a lion roareth. Those descriptive terms lead a number of commentators and students to decide that that is Christ. I do not. I could. It would be easy to decide that's who he's talking about. But there are things that are being discussed in that verse that lead me to believe not to think that it's Christ, but instead it is an angel from heaven. The first thing I would call your attention to is found in verses 5 and 6. The angel that I saw standing upon the sea and upon the earth lifted up his right hand to heaven and sware by him that liveth forever and ever. One particular writer made the point that this is the strongest point to make to show that it is not Jesus Christ, but instead it is an angel. That's because when you compare Hebrews chapter 6, verse 13, Hebrews 6:13, for when God made promise to Abraham, promise, oath, swearing, since he could swear by none greater, he sware by himself. So God the Father would swear by God the Father. Well, here, this angel is swearing by he who made the heavens and the earth, the creator of all things. That could just as easily be Christ that he's swearing to as it is to the Father. What are you saying, Ron? There are those who would say that this is Christ swearing to the Father. I would suggest Hebrews chapter 6:13 would say that he could swear to himself. And he is creator. But I would especially point out to you the reason it's not Christ is because the angel is inferior to the Christ and inferior to the Father. Therefore, one who is inferior, an angel of heaven, is swearing to God in heaven, to deity. Looking back at verse 1, I would suggest a stronger point. There are those who think that's the stronger point. I don't. I think verse 1 has the strongest point. I saw another strong angel come down out of heaven. Does anybody see why you would conclude that this is not Christ? This passage refers to this angel as a strong angel. But more importantly, this passage refers to the strong angel as another strong angel. We have talked about in worship allos, the Greek word allos, another of the same kind. Another of the same kind. So is Christ a strong angel like another strong angel? No, that would put them on equal terms if you did that. Being the same, not just equal, but being the same kind. Christ is not a created angel. He's deity. Notice with me in chapter 5, verse 1 and 2, especially verse 2. Revelation 5, 1 and 2. I saw on the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book written within on the back, close sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a great voice, who is worthy to open the book? So you have in chapter 5 a strong angel. You have in chapter 10 another strong angel. Now that fits. That fits that there is a mighty angel and another mighty angel. Therefore, in Revelation 10:1, it is not Christ, but a created angelic being. There are some other things. For instance, when you look at chapter 10, verse 2, and we'll deal with this specifically, but right now we're just calling attention to the point of whether it's Christ or not. Revelation 10, verse 2, he had in his hand a little book. He set his right foot upon the sea and his left foot upon the earth. Well, see, he has dominion, and that's Christ. No, no, that would be an incorrect thinking in my judgment. The stance is symbolic of a worldwide scope of his message and his judgment. The message that he has is worldwide. The judgment that he's bringing, the thunder, is worldwide. And thus he has his foot on the sea and he has his foot on the land. What else is left? So it's universal. It's not Christ in dominion. It is an angel in the scope of his work. Going back to chapter 10, verse 1 and 2, we already read the various descriptions of the angel. And these descriptions are the reason why a number of commentators would conclude that this is talking about Jesus and not an angelic being. Let me first of all call your attention to the first verse. See if I can find it. And I saw another strong angel coming down out of heaven, arrayed with a cloud, and the rainbow was upon his head, and his face was as the sun. See, that's Christ. No, no. I understand why you would do that, but it's not Christ. Well, how do you know? One similarity is the face of this angel, and it can be compared to Moses' face. Moses' face would shine just like this. Turn with me to Exodus chapter 24, Exodus 24, 15 through 18. And while you're writing verses down, Exodus 34, 29 through 30. Those two passages are going to give us the background of why Moses' face would shine and give us the reason why the angelic being, his face is shining. Exodus 24:15, Moses went up to the mount where God was, and the cloud covered the mount, and the glory of Jehovah abode upon the mount. Verse 17, and the appearance of the glory of Jehovah was like a devouring fire on the top of the mount. Verse 8, and Moses went up into the mount. What's the background? He's going into Mount Sinai. He's going into the mount Sinai. And there is Jehovah in his glory. Now turn with me to Exodus 34:29. And it came to pass when Moses came up from the mount, Moses knew not that the skin of his face shone by reason of his speaking with God. And when Aaron and all the children of Israel saw Moses, they were afraid to come nigh unto him. Moses goes up to the mount, speaks with the Lord. In the midst of the glory of the Lord, he comes down, and what's his face? A reflection of the glory of Jehovah, where he had just been. That's exactly what's going on with the strong angel. The strong angel came down out of heaven. That means he was in the presence of the Lord. And thus we can understand why his face would shine like unto Moses. There is a contrast. You may remember in chapter 1, the countenance of the Son of God. That means the totality of the Son of God would shine. Here it's just the face. When you are standing before the countenance of the Lord in the glory of the Lord, your face may shine just like this strong angel and just like Moses. Therefore, you do not have to conclude that this has to be Christ because his face would shine. I'm going to go through the other similarities. That was the strongest one. I'm going to go through the others to show you that there's no distinct description that would say it has to be Jesus Christ. We take notice in verse 1. He is clothed or arrayed with a cloud, a figure of heavenly authority and divine commission. Clouds consistently mark someone acting from God. What I get out of this array concept is this. You have someone who's fixing to be crowned or given a mission, and you place a particular clothing, an array of clothing, and you array them in that clothing of authority to carry out a work. That's what this strong angel had. Secondly, and the rainbow was upon his head. That indicates mercy, always indicates mercy, no matter whether it's deity or not. His face was as the sun. We covered that. His feet as pillars of fire. Looks like verse 1, the last phrase. The symbolic, firm, unshakable judgment that's coming from God. This angel is going to talk about or leave the impression concerning a universal judgment. He does not go into it, but he's commissioned with it. You'll take notice that he has a little book open in his hand. This represents an inspired message from God, and it's given unto John. And John has given a commission, verse 11 especially. There are other things involved with it, but verse 11 lets it be known he is to go and preach and to teach the little book. Then it says, the right foot on the sea and the left foot on the earth. Sea run, dominion. We covered that. It's not dominion, it's scope of his mission or work. Now, truly, some of the things that are said would overlap a little bit with the description of Christ. But number one, calling this angel another strong angel prevents me from concluding that it's the Christ. Anybody have anything they would like to add to that? Okay. Let's take a look at verse 3 and 4. Verse 3 and 4, he cried with a great voice as a lion roareth. And when he cried, thus the roar is connected. The seven thunders uttered their voices. He's able to hear the voices in the sound from the seven thunders. And when the seven thunders uttered their voices, John says, I was about to write, and I heard a voice from heaven saying, seal up the things which the seven thunders uttered, and write them not. That's the last you hear about the seven thunders. Would you like to know what they are? Me too. So does every commentator that's ever read this passage. Would you like to hear a guess? It goes something like this. John is revealing what's going on in the first century. He's helping them to understand some things. Now comes things in the future, and John has no reason to tell them of these things. They are thunders. They are the lion roaring. And that's not necessarily good for evil people. That's not to say that he's writing to evil people. There's just no reason to give them this information. I don't know where David is in Daniel. I even forget whether he's even started Daniel or not, but he has studied in times past. And in Daniel chapter 12, you have Daniel being told to seal up the things of the book. And then the man of God would say unto Daniel, people will be able to see what they are when it occurs. So you've written all of these things, seal it, well, you're finished, it's done with. And when the time comes, people will understand what you wrote. That's not the case with the thunders. Don't write them. They will understand them. And God says, I do not want them to understand it right now. That's my understanding of it. You have in Revelation chapter 22 that John, the messenger of God, is being told in that chapter, do not seal the things of the book. With that, he's saying, I want everybody to know what this book says and the totality of what has been revealed. And that's a big contrast between the two. Let me call your attention to one particular figure of speech, verse 3. He cried with a great voice as a lion roareth. For some reason, this little brain of mine over decades has failed to grasp what it means as a lion roareth. Until this week. I mean, I understood some words I was being told, but now I think I know. Here is a statement out in the real world when a lion cuts loose with the full-throated shake your ribs roar, it always is tied to authority, territory, or dominance. They don't waste the big roar on casual chatter. We're not talking about Sue's kitty cat called Precious. This is a roar of a lion. Amos 3 verse 8 says this, the lion hath roared, who will not fear? Let me put it another way. No one is going to listen to that roar and not be afraid. All are going to be afraid. The Lord Jehovah hath spoken. Who can but prophesy? The one tells you what the other is. The Lord has spoken. And it's about judgment. And the next chapter, Amos 4, verse 12. Therefore, thus will I do unto thee, O Israel, and because I will do this unto thee, prepare to meet thy God, O Israel. So Amos, the prophet of God in 700 BC, is talking to the northern tribes, and he says, the lion roareth, and judgment is coming upon you, chapter 1, chapter 2. And that judgment, you prepare for it. You cannot prepare enough to face it, to be against it. You have to prepare what's coming your way. Here is when lions roar, like we're reading in this text. They roar to declare their territory. They roar to warn off rivals, a challenge, a threat, a line in the sand, all in one sound. They roar to rally or locate their pride, the ladies. They roar at dusk or at dawn in order to tell everybody where they are. And where I are, don't you come. They roar before and after confrontation. A roar can precede a fight. It can follow victory. So when John says, as a lion roareth, he's picking the moment when a lion is at its most authoritative, territorial, and impossible to ignore. It's not a household cat noise. Meow. We've got a cat around here. You walk out the door. When you open the door, this cat is meow, 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 meow. You go out and it walks around you and trips you. It's still meow, meow, meow. You feed it. It meows when it eats, but it never roars. This lion is a big cat. Any comments on the lion? Man. Chapter 10, verse 7. But in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, I think you recall who the seventh angel is. These are the angels that are blowing the trumpets of warning. 6 have already sounded. This is an interlude. The 7th is about to sound. And so what John is pointing out is, but in the days of the voice of the 7th angel, when he is about to sound, then is finished of God according to the good tidings, the gospel, which he declared, he evangelized to his servants, the prophets. How many of you believe and see in that it's talking about the conclusion, the completion, the finishing of the gospel of Christ? That's what I'm seeing in what is being said. The mystery of God, the schema, the plan of God. One way to describe what this Greek word means when it uses the word mystery, let me do it this way. One way not to describe what this word mystery means is whenever you are watching TV and you're watching a mystery of a murder. That's not what is being suggested in this word mystery. But instead, a repairman walks into your house, goes over to your television, and on the back of the TV, he's got a schema. He's got a plan. It shows where everything is. Another way is whenever you see generals in an army, they spread out their plans that they're about to engage in, their offense, their defense. This is God's schema, the mystery, the schema, the plan of God for the salvation of mankind. It says, according to the good tidings, the gospel, which he evangelized to his servants, the prophets. You may remember that the thunders, he said, don't write. Therefore, the thunders are not the good tidings. They're different. We never find out what the thunders are. But this passage tells us what the good tidings are and the mystery of God. These things have been written. They have been declared. He has evangelized. Go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. Now, take notice with me, and we'll finish with this. The good tidings include. What do the good tidings include? The coming of the Messiah. Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. I will put enmity between thee and the woman, between thy seed and her seed. He shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. 2 Samuel 7:12, a king sitting on the throne of David. Isaiah 9, 6 through 7, a ruler, which would be Christ, born to rule over his kingdom. he would be seated upon the throne of David. In Acts chapter 2, the apostles, Peter's words being recorded, would say that David is talking about the Christ seated on his throne. And in doing so, he's talking about the resurrection of Christ. We could look at Isaiah chapter 53. Let me call your attention, Isaiah 53 to verse 3. Isaiah 53, 3. He was despised and rejected of men, but not despised and rejected of God, said the concept. He was a man of sorrows, not his own, but the sorrows of others. He was acquainted with grief because he helped men who were grieving. And as one from whom men hid their face, he was despised. We human beings, we his people, we Israel, esteemed him not. Isaiah is writing this around 700 BC. Jesus came to the earth somewhere 700 years later. And whenever he came to this earth, he was despised, he was rejected, and they would hide their face from him and not listen to what he says. They esteemed him not, they held him down. Why did Christ die for you and me? Why did Christ die for them? They showed such hatred towards him, such rejection of him. It's amazing, the amazing love of God, who can love men and do for men what they can't do for themselves. Even though they hate him at the time, even though they never quit hating him, and even though they die hating him, he still died for them. This is what we see in verse 4. Surely he hath borne our griefs, carried our sorrows. That's talking about the miraculous age in the first century, whenever he was upon this earth for 3.5 years. Yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. God is against him. Wrong conclusion, Jews. 5. But he was wounded for our transgressions. That's a deadly blow. He was bruised for our iniquities. That's a deadly blow. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are all healed. What Isaiah has just pointed out to us is this: God loved us enough to die a terrible, terrible death. The humiliation and the shame and the embarrassment that he went through was not for himself. He left heaven, Philippians chapter 2. He gave up the equality with God, or the appearance of the equality with God, and took the form of a servant, said Paul. That form of a servant indicates that when you saw Jesus, there was no comeliness to him, Isaiah 53, 1 and 2. But instead, what you saw was a man. You did not see the glory of God when you looked upon Jesus Christ. But you heard the glory of God. You saw God in the flesh. And you saw the attitude and the love and the kindness, compassion, and the mercy of God. And that's what's being depicted in this passage. Turn with me to Psalm 22, please. By the way, the last part of Isaiah chapter 53 would point out that he would see his seed and that he would intercede for his seed. That's the resurrection and the continued work in the heavenly abode. We are now looking at Psalm 22. I'm going to start with verse 1 because I think it's misunderstood. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? Why art thou so far from helping me and from the words of my groaning? Anybody who's ever read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John recognizes that's the words of Jesus on the cross of Calvary. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? See, Jesus thought God had forsaken him. No, no, no. What Jesus just did with that quote was call attention to this psalm and say he was the fulfillment of that psalm. He's not saying God has abandoned him in this passage. He's saying the people think that God has abandoned him in this passage. There's more. Let's take a notice at verse 6. But I am a worm and no man, a reproach of men, despised of the people. That's what he means in verse 1. There's more, and what you're going to see in Psalm 22 is the crucifixion of Christ. In Psalm 22, you see the crucifixion of Christ 1,000 years before Christ was crucified, and some 300 years before men crucified men. The Persians are the ones who started it. The Romans are the ones who built it up to such a great art of torture. I will call your attention also to Psalm 16:10. He would be raised. To Isaiah 2 through 3, the gospel of Christ, salvation offered to all nations, all men. Joel chapter 2, verse 32, the gospel coming to all men. Daniel 2:44, the establishment of God's kingdom in the first century, in the days of those kings. Micah 4:1 and 2, same thing. Back to Revelation 10:7. But in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he is about to sound, then is finished the mystery of God according to the good tidings which he declared to his servants and his prophets thousands of years before it came to pass, and declared what it meant when he died and fulfilled those prophecies. Any questions? Next week, we'll be looking at the little book. If you want to know a little bit about the little book, go to Ezekiel chapter 2, verse 6 through chapter 3, first half of it. And you will get an excellent idea of what the little book is all about. And if you're a gospel preacher, you know exactly what is meant by the figure of speech. Sweet as honey, bitter in my belly.